All right, let's cut through the noise. We live in a world obsessed with appearance, six-pack abs, chiseled jawlines, the perfect car, the perfect house, the perfect everything. It's like we're all stuck in some Hollywood blockbuster, chasing a script written by people who don't even know us. I've been there. When I was younger, I thought I had to be the guy with the flashiest prototype, the one who could impress everyone with specs and stats. I mean, come on, I built rockets and electric cars performance was my language, but let me tell you something. Love, love doesn't care about your specs. It doesn't care about your horsepower or your payload capacity. And when it comes to women, especially women over 50, it's not about the shiny exterior or the numbers you think define you. They're not looking for a Tesla Roadster to sweep them off their feet. They want something real, something that lasts longer than a sprint from 0 to 60 in 9 seconds. Let me take you back. Early in my career, I was all about pushing limits, building things bigger, faster, better. I thought relationships worked the same way. I figured if I could optimize my life, my work, my image, then love would just fall into place like a perfectly executed Falcon 9 landing. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. I remember this one moment, let's call it my light bulb moment. I was sitting across from someone I cared about, trying to impress her with stories of SpaceX launches and Tesla's next big thing. She looked at me not with awe, but with this quiet, piercing gaze and said, Elon, I don't care about your rockets. I just want to know you're here with me. That hit me like a meteor. I realized I was playing the wrong game, chasing the wrong metrics. I was trying to win at something that wasn't even the point. Here's the truth. Society sells us a lie about love. It's in the movies, the billboards, the social media feeds everywhere. We're told it's about looking like a superhero, performing like an Olympian, being the guy who's got it all together. And for years, I bought into that. I thought I had to be the biggest, the boldest, the most impressive to matter. But women over 50, they've seen through that facade. They've lived through the hype cycles, marriage, kids, heartbreak, the whole messy, beautiful chaos of life. They're not impressed by your resume or your bench press max. They want a man who shows up not just in body, but in spirit. They want presence, not performance. And if you're sitting there wondering if you measure up, let me save you some time. You don't need to be a superhero. You just need to be real. Think about it. When I started SpaceX, everyone said it was impossible. Private rockets, landing boosters on a dime, crazy. But we did it because we didn't chase the status quo, redefine what was possible. Love is no different. The world's been feeding you a playbook that's outdated, written for a game nobody's playing anymore. Women over 50 aren't looking for the guy who can flex the most or flaunt the biggest anything. They're looking for someone who's willing to strip away the ego, the posturing, and just be there. It's not about how fast you can go. It's about how deeply you can connect. And that, my friends, is where the real mission begins. Let me get personal for a second. I've spent my life solving hard problems, colonizing Mars, building sustainable energy, connecting brains to computers. But one of the hardest problems I've ever tackled, understanding what really matters to someone I love. I used to think it was about being the guy who could fix everything, who could solve any equation. But love isn't an equation. It's not a rocket launch or a production line. It's messy, it's human, it's raw. And women over 50, they've earned the wisdom to know that. They've been through the ups and downs, relationships that soared and others that crashed. They've raised kids, built careers, faced loss, and come out stronger. They don't want a guy who's trying to prove something. They want a man who's brave enough to be vulnerable, to listen, to show up without a script. Here's where it gets interesting. Society's got us all wired to think love is about conquest, bigger, faster, stronger. But that's like thinking the only way to get to Mars is with a bigger rocket. Sometimes it's about optimizing the fuel, the trajectory, the timing. Women over 50 aren't chasing the biggest rocket. They're looking for the guy who knows how to navigate the journey with them. They want someone who's not afraid to slow down, to feel the moment, to let go of the need to win. I learned this when I stopped trying to impress and started trying to understand. I started asking questions not about how to be better, but about what she needed, what made her feel safe, what made her feel seen. That's when I realized love isn't about being the best. It's about being present. Let's talk about the stakes. If you keep chasing society's version of love, the one that's all about look, status, or performance, you're going to burn out. You'll spend your life running a race that doesn't exist, measuring yourself against a yardstick that's irrelevant. I've seen it happen. Guys who think they need to be Superman end up alone, not because they're not enough, but because they're chasing the wrong thing. Women over 50 have a clarity most of us are still catching up to. They know that real love isn't about how you stack up on paper. It's about how you show up in the moment, how you make her feel, how you listen, how you care. And that's not just a lesson for love, it's a lesson for life. I'm not saying it's easy. Rewriting the rules of anything, whether it's space travel or relationship stakes, courage, it takes work. It takes a willingness to fail and keep going. When I founded Tesla, people laughed. Electric cars in a world of gas guzzlers, but we pushed through because we believed in a bigger mission. Love is the same. You've got to let go of the old playbook, the one that says you need to be taller, stronger, flashier. You've got to believe in a bigger mission, building a connection that's deeper than skin, stronger than ego, and more enduring than any trophy. Women over 50 aren't looking for a trophy. They're looking for a partner who's all in, who's ready to build something real. So here's my challenge to you. Stop playing by someone else's rules. Stop measuring yourself by standards that don't matter. Women over 50 aren't comparing you to the guy in the movies or the guy on the billboard. They're comparing you to what feels true. And what feels true is a man who's brave enough to be himself, to show up without pretense, to love without conditions. That's the mission. That's the rocket we're building. Not one that's bigger or louder, but one that's built to last, one that can carry you both to places you never thought possible. This is where it starts. Right here, right now. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to ask the right questions, not about how you measure up, but about how you can show up. Women over 50, they're not asking for the moon. They're asking for you, your heart, your presence, your willingness to see them for who they are. And if you can do that, you're not just building a relationship, you're building a legacy. So let's get to work. Let's redefine love, not as a race, but as a mission to create something extraordinary. Are you in? Let's dive into the real mission, understanding what women truly want as they navigate the second half of life. If you think love is a static equation, something you can solve once and be done with, you're in for a surprise. Love evolves, just like technology, just like us. When I started SpaceX, people thought I was nuts building reusable rockets to colonize Mars. Impossible. But we didn't just build a rocket, we built a system that learns, adapts, and gets better with every launch. Relationships are no different. Women over 50 aren't looking for the same things they wanted at 20 or 30, and if you're still playing by the rules of your youth, you're missing the point. This isn't about chasing a fleeting spark. It's about building a connection that can go the distance, like a Tesla cruising 400 miles on a single charge. Let me take you back to my own journey. Early on, I thought relationships were about hitting targets, say the right thing, make the big gesture, be the guy who stands out. I approached love like I approached engineering: optimize, execute, win. But here's what I learned the hard way. Love isn't a sprint to the finish line. It's a marathon. And the women who've run that race through marriage, kids, heartbreak, and everything in between know it better than anyone. When women are young, they're bombarded with noise. Movies, magazines, social media, they all scream that love is about the physical, the flashy, the superficial. Bigger is better, faster is sexier, and performance is everything. I get it. I bought into that too. I thought if I could just deliver like I did with Tesla's production lines, I'd have it all figured out. But life has a way of rewriting the script. Women over 50, they've seen the world's playbook and they're done with it. They've lived through the highs of falling in love, the lows of broken promises, the chaos of raising kids, and the quiet strength of rebuilding after loss. They've earned a kind of wisdom that cuts through the noise. They don't care about your horsepower or your payload capacity. They want a man who can navigate the stars with them, not just dazzle them with a light show. I remember a conversation with a woman who'd been through it all: marriage, divorce, a career that took her across continents. I asked her what she wanted now, expecting some profound, complex answer. She just smiled and said, "Someone who listens to my rhythm, not someone who's trying to set the pace." That stuck with me. It's not about leading the race. It's about running it together. Think about it like building a rocket. When we designed the Falcon 9, we didn't just make it bigger, we made it smarter. We engineered it to adapt, to land softly, to be reusable. Women over 50 are looking for that kind of engineering in a partner. Not someone who's trying to break speed records, but someone who knows how to adjust, to align, to move in sync. They've been through enough to know that the physical stuff, the size, the speed, the show doesn't equal fulfillment. It's not about how fast you can go from 0 to 60. It's about how well you can stay on the road together. And that takes a kind of courage most guys don't talk about. The courage to slow down, to listen, to let go of the need to impress. Let's get real for a second. Society wires us to think love is about conquest, be the alpha, dominate the game, win the prize. I used to think that way to build the biggest rocket, make the loudest splash. But women over 50 aren't prizes to be won, they're partners to be valued. They've learned that real intimacy isn't about who's got the most to show off, it's about who's got the guts to show up. I had this moment once sitting with someone I cared about, trying to fill the silence with stories about Neuralink or the next big thing. She stopped me and said, Elon, I don't need your resume. I just need you to be here. That was a wake up call. I realized I was trying to sell her on a version of me that didn't even matter. What she wanted was connection, not competition. Here's where it gets interesting. The evolution of desire isn't just about women, it's about us too. If you're still chasing the ideals of your 20s, trying to be the guy with the perfect physique or the slickest lines, you're not just missing what women want, you're missing out on who you can become. I've spent my life pushing boundaries, whether it's sending a Tesla Roadster into orbit or digging tunnels with the Boring Company. But one of the hardest boundaries to push, the one inside yourself. It's easy to get stuck in the mindset of more is better, more muscle, more charm, more everything. But women over 50 are teaching us something profound. Less can be more. Less ego, less posturing, less rushing, more presence, more listening, more heart. Let me share a story. I was once at a dinner with a group of brilliant minds engineers, scientists, visionaries. One of them, a woman in her 50s, had this quiet confidence that stole the room. She wasn't trying to prove anything, but when she spoke, everyone listened. Later, I asked her about her life, her relationships. She told me about her marriage, her kids, the years of building and breaking and rebuilding. When I was younger, she said, I thought love was about fireworks. Now I know it's about the glow that lasts after the show's over. That hit me hard. Fireworks are great, but they burn out. The glow? That's what keeps you warm. That's what women over 50 are looking for, not the explosion, but the steady light. This evolution isn't just about biology, it's about wisdom. Women over 50 have seen the world change, economies crash, technologies rise, families grow and shift. They've learned that love isn't about the surface level stuff. It's about someone who can match their rhythm, who can walk beside them through the chaos and the calm. And here's the thing, that's not just what they want, it's what we should want too. I've spent my life optimizing systems, making cars faster, rockets smarter, AI more intuitive, but optimizing a relationship, that's the ultimate challenge. It's not about building something bigger, it's about building something better. It's about learning to adapt, to listen, to align with someone else's needs. So what does this mean for you? It means you got to rethink your approach. Stop trying to be the guy who wins at everything. Start being the guy who shows up for everything. Women over 50 aren't looking for a superhero, they're looking for a partner who's willing to do the work. And that work starts with understanding. Understand that their desires have evolved, just like yours should. Understand that love isn't about impressing her with your stats, it's about connecting with her soul. Understand that the mission isn't to be the best, it's to be present. I learned this when I stopped trying to solve love like it was a math problem and started treating it like a journey. Every step, every moment, every conversation is a chance to build something extraordinary. Here's my challenge to you. Take a hard look at yourself. Are you still chasing the ideals of your youth? Are you still trying to measure up to some impossible standard? Let it go. Women over 50 aren't measuring you by your biceps or your bank account. They're measuring you by your heart, your presence, your willingness to show up fully. And that's not just a lesson for love, it's a lesson for life. Just like I had to rethink what it means to build a rocket, you've got to rethink what it means to build a relationship. It's not about speed or size, it's about direction, alignment, and staying the course. So let's get to work. Let's evolve, and not just for them, but for ourselves. Because when we do, we're not just building better relationships, we're building better lives. Let's get to the core of it. Love isn't just poetry or passion, it's science. It's systems, biology, and adaptation, like designing a neural interface or plotting a trajectory to Mars. If you want to understand what women over 50 crave and love, you've got to understand the machinery behind it, not just their hearts, but their bodies, their minds, and the way life rewires them over time. I've spent my life decoding complex systems, whether it's the physics of a Falcon Heavy launch or the algorithms powering Neuralink. But decoding what makes a woman feel truly connected, that's a challenge that makes landing a rocket on a drone ship look like a walk in the park. And it starts with understanding the science of their evolution, not just as people, but as biological systems navigating a changing landscape. Let's break it down. A woman's body isn't static, it's a dynamic system, like the battery pack in a Tesla. It adapts, it shifts, it responds to the world around it. When women are younger, their hormones are like a high performance engine tuned for speed, responsiveness, maybe even a bit of recklessness. But life changes the equation. Pregnancy, for instance, it's like upgrading an entire operating system. Sensitivity in some areas ramps up while others dial down. Childbirth, that's a full system reboot, reshaping physical comfort and emotional needs. And then comes menopause, the big one. It's not just a phase, it's a complete recalibration of the body's chemistry. Hormones shift, lubrication changes, sensation evolves. What felt good at 25 might be uncomfortable, even painful at 55. It's not a flaw, it's physics. The body is adapting to a new mission profile, and if you're still operating on old specs, you're going to crash. I learned this the hard way. Early in my relationships, I thought intimacy was about hitting the right targets, check the boxes, execute the plan, move on. I approached it like optimizing a production line, faster, stronger, better. But one day, someone I cared about sat me down and explained it in terms I could understand. Elon, she said, my body's not a machine you can just push to the limit. It's a system that needs care, not speed. That was a wake-up call. I realized I was treating love like a SpaceX launch full thrust all the time. But women over 50, they're not looking for a booster rocket. They're looking for a partner who can navigate the orbit with them, who knows when to ease off the throttle and coast. Here's the science. Hormonal changes don't just affect the body, they reshape what intimacy means. Deep, aggressive moves, stuff that movies glorify, can become more about discomfort than desire. The body's response to touch, to rhythm, to intensity, it all shifts. Um, I started thinking about it like Neuralink. When we're designing a brain-machine interface, we don't just crank up the signal strength, we fine-tune it to match the brain's unique patterns. Intimacy is the same. Women over 50 need a partner who can read their signals, not overpower them. They need gentleness, intention, presence. It's not about how hard you can push, it's about how well you can align. And that's where most guys miss the mark. They're still chasing horsepower when the mission calls for precision. Let me share a story. I was working late one night, probably obsessing over some Starship design flaw, when a friend, a woman in her 50s, dropped by. She'd just come from a tough day, and I could see it in her eyes. I started rattling off ideas to fix her mood, like I was troubleshooting a circuit board. She stopped me and said, Elon, I don't need solutions. I just need you to sit here and listen. So I did. We talked for hours about her life, her kids, the things that weighed on her. And in that moment, I realized something. Being there, fully present, was more powerful than any grand gesture I could have planned. It wasn't about solving her problems, it was about sharing the moment. That's what women over 50 crave, not a hero, but a partner who's all in. This is where the real engineering comes in. Building a connection isn't about brute force, it's about finesse. It's about understanding that foreplay isn't just the 5 minutes before something happens, it's everything leading up to it. A kind word at breakfast, a laugh shared over coffee, a hand on her shoulder when she's stressed, that's the groundwork. I used to think intimacy was the main event, like the moment a rocket lifts off. But it's not. It's the months of design, the countless tests, the quiet moments of calibration that make the launch possible. Women over 50 know this. They've lived enough to understand that the real magic happens in the small intentional moments that build trust, that open the heart, that make the body feel safe. Let's talk stakes. If you ignore the science, if you keep chasing the myths of youth, thinking it's all about performance, you're setting yourself up for failure. You'll burn out like a rocket with no guidance system spinning off into nowhere. I've seen it happen. Guys who think they need to be the loudest, the strongest, the most impressive end up alone, not because they're not enough, but because they're chasing the wrong target. Women over 50 aren't impressed by your max thrust. They're moved by your ability to stay in orbit with them. They want a man who can read their body like a star chart, who knows when to push and when to pull back, who's not afraid to be gentle. And that takes a kind of courage. Most people don't talk about the courage to let go of ego and embrace presence. I've spent my life solving impossible problems, electric cars, reusable rockets, brain-computer interfaces, but one of the toughest, learning to slow down in love. I remember a moment with someone special, sitting on a porch, watching the sunset. I was itching to check my phone to dive back into work, but she took my hand and said, "Stay here with me." So I did. And in that silence, I felt something deeper than any launch or breakthrough. I felt connected. That's what women over 50 are teaching us. Connection isn't about intensity, it's about alignment. It's about showing up, not showing off. Here's my challenge to you: rewire your approach. Think of yourself as a system engineer, not a stunt driver. Your job isn't to floor the gas, it's to calibrate, to listen, to adapt. Women over 50 aren't asking for a bigger rocket. They're asking for a smarter one that can navigate their world with precision and care. So start paying attention. Notice the signals, the way she moves, the way she talks, the way she lights up or pulls back. That's your data. Use it. Build a connection that's not just strong, but sustainable. Because when you do, you're not just building a moment, you're building a mission that can last a lifetime. Let's talk about what happens after the launch. When we send a rocket into orbit at SpaceX, the job doesn't end when the boosters fire. That's just the beginning. The real work is making sure the payload stays on course, that the mission succeeds long after the flames die down. Love is no different. You don't just show up for the big moment and walk away. The real magic, the pot that makes a relationship not just good but extraordinary, happens in the quiet moments afterward. It's called aftercare, those minutes, hours, or even days when you hold space for each other, when you nurture what you've built. For women over 50, this isn't just nice to have, it's everything. And if you want to build a connection that lasts longer than a Tesla battery pack, say 500 miles and counting, you've got to master this. Let me paint you a picture. Early in my life, I thought the main event was the whole deal. Get to the finish line, check the box, move on to the next challenge. I treated relationships like I treated engineering problems: solve it, optimize it, done. But then I had this moment with someone who changed my perspective. We just shared a night together, not some Hollywood blockbuster scene, just real human connection. I was ready to jump up, check my emails, dive back into Starship schematics, but she reached for my hand and said, "Stay, just for a little while." We lay there, talking about nothing and everything: her dreams, my fears, the way the world feels heavier some days. That's when it hit me. The moment after is just as important as the moment during. It's like landing a Falcon 9 booster. You don't just celebrate the touchdown, you make sure it's ready for the next mission. Women over 50 have lived enough to know this truth. They've been through the whirlwind, raising kids, building careers, weathering storms. They've had partners who rushed through, who treated love like a transaction. And they've learned that what matters most isn't the intensity of the moment, but the care that follows. Aftercare is about showing up when the spotlight's off. It's the cuddle that says, "I'm still here." It's the conversation that says, "You matter to me." It's the silence that says, "I feel safe with you." I'm not talking about grand gestures. Nobody needs a Tesla Cybertruck parked in their driveway to feel loved. I'm talking about the small intentional acts that build trust, that make her feel seen, that turn a fleeting moment into a lasting bond. Think about it like maintaining a system. At Tesla, we don't just build a car and call it a day. We monitor its performance, we update the software, we make sure it's ready for the long haul. Relationships are the same. Women over 50 aren't looking for a one-time launch. They're looking for a partner who's in it for the whole mission. I learned this one evening when I was with someone special. We'd had a great night, but I could tell something was off. Instead of pushing forward or ignoring it, I asked her what she needed. She didn't want solutions or fireworks. She just wanted me to hold her and listen. So I did. We talked about her life, the kids she raised, the dreams she still carried, the fears she didn't often share. That night wasn't about performance, it was about presence. And it was more powerful than any rocket I've ever built. Here's the science behind it. Intimacy isn't just physical, it's emotional, neurological, even chemical. When you hold someone close after a moment of connection, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It's like the software update that keeps the system running smoothly. For women over 50 whose bodies have been through hormonal shifts like menopause, that emotional connection is critical. It's not just about feeling good, it's about feeling safe. Aftercare tells her, "You're not just a moment to me, you're a priority." It's the difference between a one-night stand and a lifelong mission. And let me tell you, I've launched enough rockets to know that the missions that last are the ones you nurture, not the ones you abandon after liftoff. Let's get real. Most guys miss this. They think the goal is the peak, the climax, the big win. I used to think that way, too optimized for the moment, then move on. But women over 50, They've seen enough to know that the peak is just a starting point. What matters is what comes next, how you show up when the adrenaline fades. I remember a conversation with a woman who'd been married for 20 years, then divorced. She told me the thing she missed most wasn't the passion, it was the quiet moments afterward when her partner would hold her and make her feel like she was enough. That's when I knew I was loved, she said. Not during, but after. That stuck with me. It's like building a starship. You don't just get it to orbit, you make sure it can come back home. This is where the real engineering happens. Aftercare isn't just about cuddling or talking, it's about building a system that lasts. It's about showing her that you're not just there for the thrill, you're there for the journey. I've spent my life solving problems that seem impossible: electric cars in a gas powered world, reusable rockets in a throwaway industry. But one of the toughest problems, learning to stay present when every instinct tells you to move on to the next thing. I had a moment once after a long day at SpaceX when I was with someone I cared about. I was exhausted, my mind racing with 1,000 tasks, but she looked at me and said, "Just be here." So I put my phone down, turned off the noise, and we sat together, sharing stories about our lives. That moment wasn't flashy, but it was profound. It was aftercare in action, and it built something stronger than any rocket. Here's the stakes. If you skip aftercare, you're leaving half the mission on the table. You're launching a rocket without a landing plan. Women over 50 have lived enough to know what they deserve and not just a partner who shows up for the big moments, but one who sticks around for the small ones. They want a man who's not afraid to hold space, to listen, to be vulnerable, and that takes courage. It's easy to chase the high of the moment. It's harder to stay when the moment passes. But that's where the real connection is built. That's where you show her you're not just in it for the launch, you're in it for the whole damn orbit. My challenge to you is this: rethink what it means to be a partner. Stop treating love like a sprint to the finish line. Start treating it like a mission to Mars. Every step, every moment, every quiet pause is part of the journey. Women over 50 aren't asking for fireworks, they're asking for a steady flame. So show up, hold her close, talk about the things that matter, or just sit in silence, letting her know you're there. That's aftercare. That's the difference between a moment and a legacy. And if you can master that, you're not just building a relationship, you're building something that can outlast the stars. All right, let's wrap this up with a mission directive. Love isn't just about understanding someone else, it's about understanding yourself and pushing to become the best version of you. I've spent my life chasing the impossible, building electric cars when everyone said gas was king, launching rockets when people called it a pipe dream, wiring brains to computers when it sounded like sci-fi. But the hardest mission I've ever taken on? Becoming the kind of man who can show up fully in love, not just with a woman, but with life itself. Women over 50 aren't looking for a guy who's got it all figured out. They're looking for someone who's willing to do the work, to grow, to evolve. And if you want to build a connection that's stronger than a Tesla Cybertruck, faster than a Falcon 9, and more enduring than a Starship voyage, you've got to start with yourself. Let me take you back to a moment that changed me. I was deep in the weeds at SpaceX, wrestling with a booster that kept failing to land. My brain was fried, my focus razor sharp on the problem. But then someone I cared about walked into my office, sat down, and said, "Elon, you're solving the wrong equation." I thought she was talking about the rocket, but she wasn't. She was talking about us. I was so caught up in proving myself, building the next big thing, chasing the next milestone, that I was missing what mattered right in front of me. She didn't want a guy who could colonize Mars. She wanted a guy who could sit with her, listen to her, and make her feel like she was the mission. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that the real challenge wasn't out there in the starset, it was right here, in becoming a man who could love with intention. Here's the deal. Women over 50 have seen it all. They've raised kids, fought battles, rebuilt their lives after heartbreak. They've earned a clarity that cuts through the noise. They don't care about your bank account, your biceps, or your trophy case. They're not comparing you to the guy in the movies or the influencer on social media. They're looking for something real, someone who's not afraid to show up with their heart on their sleeve, someone who's willing to listen, to learn, to grow. I used to think love was about being the best innovator, best entrepreneur, best everything. But women over 50 taught me something deeper. It's not about being the best, it's about being present. It's about showing up fully, flaws and all, and building something that lasts. Think about it like engineering a system. At Tesla, we don't just build a car and call it done. We iterate, we improve, we push the limits of what's possible. Relationships are the same. You can't just coast on what worked in your 20s or 30s. You've got to upgrade your software, recalibrate your approach, and commit to constant improvement. Women over 50 aren't looking for a finished product. They're looking for a partner who's willing to keep building, keep learning, keep showing up. I had a moment once, sitting with someone I cared about, when I realized I'd been approaching love like a checklist. I was trying to solve it like it was a production bottleneck. But she looked at me and said, Elon, I don't need you to fix me. I need you to see me. That's when I got it. Love isn't a problem to solve, it's a journey to share. Let's talk stakes. If you keep chasing the old metrics, looks, status, performance, you're going to crash. You'll burn out trying to measure up to a standard that doesn't even matter. I've seen it happen. Guys who think they need to be Superman end up alone, not because they're not enough, but because they're chasing the wrong thing. Women over 50 aren't looking for a superhero, they're looking for a partner who's all in. And being all in means doing the work on yourself. It means letting go of ego, of the need to impress, and embracing the courage to be vulnerable. It means listening not just to her words, but to her heart. It means showing up day after day with the same dedication I bring to SpaceX or Tesla. Here's a story. I was at a low point, buried in work, feeling like I had to carry the weight of the world. A woman in her 50s, someone who'd become a friend, sat me down and shared her story decades of raising kids, rebuilding after divorce, finding her own strength. She didn't need me to solve her problems. She just wanted me to hear her. So I listened. And in that moment, I realized something. The most powerful thing I could do wasn't to fix her life or impress her with my achievements. It was to be there, fully present, sharing the weight of the moment. That's what women over 50 crave, not a savior, but a partner who's willing to walk the path with them. This is where the mission gets real. Becoming your best self isn't about adding more horsepower or stacking up more wins. It's about stripping away the noise and getting to the core of who you are. It's about learning to listen with your heart, to love with intention, to show up without a script. I've spent my life pushing boundaries, electric cars, reusable rockets, brain-computer interfaces. But the biggest boundary I've ever pushed, the one inside myself, the one that says, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. Women over 50 aren't asking for perfection. They're asking for you, your heart, your courage, your willingness to grow. So here's my challenge to you. Commit to the mission. Not the mission to be the biggest, the strongest, or the flashiest. The mission to be the best version of yourself. Start today. Ask yourself, what's holding you back? Is it fear, ego,